Glasgow agents. Tonight, as promised, we will be interviewing one of not the trendsetters but the trend makers who worked in robotics and engineering way back in 1985.
She has been a pioneer in the Indian arts and cultures here in Glasgow, and she has won so many awards,
Both by the UK and Indian government,
in so many fields,
that your mind will just be blown away.
Namaste, Glasgow Indians. We now have Mridula ma'am with us, who wears multiple hats and has lots of talent. So now let's hear about your journey.
So ma'am, we've heard that you're a scientist. So what did you actually study to get there?
My background is science and engineering. I started my journey in India. I studied my engineering first degree in IIT Roorkee. This is an institution which was actually set up by British. That was the first university in India. After completing my degree there, I promptly came here and I studied Masters in Systems Engineering at Strathclyde University. And then I decided that I really wanted to work in business innovation. So I joined the Scientific Civil Service, a very big organization called National Engineering Laboratory in East Kilbride, and that actually works in oil and gas, renewable energy, advanced manufacturing. So I was very fortunate to join that organization. Through my journey there, I worked in many big projects to do with manufacturing, and I did part-time PhD in robotics and artificial intelligence, and at that time it was artificial intelligence was just emerging, and also neural networks. So that was the era, sort of like early 80s, 85, that sort of area. Applied my knowledge and expertise in installing a number of robotic manufacturing cells, and one of the key one was, my project was the first one in the world to do robot welding. It is not the spot welding but the continuous path welding for car manufacturing. Prince Charles, who is now King Charles, actually came to see my project and he admired what was done. And there are various other applications like assembly of electric motors. If you actually use a robot, then you have to really do that quite differently from if a human being actually does that. In my journey, I have gone and installed these systems in industry. I sort of, on top of my sari, I just wore dungarees. I would say that being a woman, and I was the only woman at that time, because the time I actually did my engineering at Roorkee, we were 4 girls and 400 boys in our class. So that was the era. I mean, now, these things are actually done quite, I think they have advanced in many fields. Girls are doing all sorts of other very challenging jobs and career choice. But at that time, I think parents were not allowing girls to go into, there were doctors, there were other, but if you wanted to be a pilot or an engineer, and these male-dominated areas, there was a really big challenge to maybe first of all convince your parents and then maybe the rest of the society. So I would say that I was lucky and that I chose that career, and it is a very fulfilling career, and engineering is my first love.
What year was it?
Sorry?
What year did you do the robotics program?
I actually started working in this field but early 70s, like 75 onwards. Robotics work, 85, and then after that the whole scene actually changed. Like I actually worked in parallel processing. I did quite a lot of computing then, because some systems are not fast enough, so you have to do distributed processing. So during my period, I sort of got through the different grades within my organization, and I became a section manager and in charge of running these projects. That was an era when I think internets were coming into being. Now everybody assumes that, but at that time, I implemented a project called Digital Britain for Department of Trade and Industry in UK, because Al Gore had implemented information superhighway. So the senior civil servant came back and they had actually given this responsibility. So all the businesses get connected with using internet, the schools, the libraries and so on. And based on that, I was actually given an award from India government, called Indra Ratna Award, and also got an award from the House of Lords for engineering excellence. So I've been very lucky for being in that position, and I still love my engineering. I really do.
How did you feel being one of the only girls between main dominant fields?
I would say that right from the early sort of beginning of my engineering course, when we were actually doing in Roorkee, in first 2 years you had to do all disciplines of engineering, although I'd actually chosen electrical and electronics, but we had to do a bit of civil engineering, a bit of workshops, so we had to go and build things. So using foundry, it's very heavy, and then girls don't have that sort of strength, but we always were surrounded by boys, and they always came and helped. So I would say that I wouldn't say that we were marginalized in any way, but we had to work really hard. But boys were everywhere to help us. When I came to this country, again I would say that it was more like a positive discrimination, that my bosses and people like that, they were all British people, but they also supported me all along. So I think, although we think that it's a male-dominated field, but if you are capable, proving the point is very difficult. But once they know you as Mridula, then there is no looking back. But the early stages are difficult. But once you have done that, it is really a very, very delightful journey, I must say.
So before you said that family support is a really important thing. How many people supported you, and did you get lots of support back in India?
Yeah, I did get, I think I was fairly innovative. Like when I got into the field of robotics, that was really early time of industrial robots, not the other type, industrial robot, very early journey. I had to go to Strathclyde University to convince them that this is the field to be in, because they were not doing robotics. I went and convinced them. I actually was responsible for setting up what is called Advanced Forming Research Institute, AFRC. So I think because of my nature that I'm pretty innovative, I was able to convince the people like movers and shakers and stakeholders in government and various institutions. So if you are not that type, I don't know what kind of journey you would have, but my mindset is that I always wanted to do new things in new ways. And so in UK government, I have actually fulfilled the role of helping the startups, micro businesses, small to medium sized enterprises and large companies. So there is a government department called Innovate UK here, which spends something like 3 billion a year on business innovation. It's for commercial exploitation. So I actually work for them. So I work as a technical assessor, I work as monitoring officer. So I give you two examples. Like one is James Dyson, when he first started his struggle, he actually went for the selective assistance grant, and I was one of the ones who actually did the assessment for him. But in more recent times, I'm actually involved in renewable energy, so like hydrogen is clean energy systems. So I'm involved in one project which is hydrogen for marine application. So it uses Ferguson Marine, which is a very talked about company just now with lots of things. But whole of Orkney Island, they are using hydrogen to see whether they can replace like diesel with hydrogen. So that project is very, very innovative. So I've been very lucky to be involved in many multi-million pound innovative projects. The other challenge or other very good which I had actually done was in the cabinet office. I worked when Tony Blair was the Prime Minister. So I was selected particularly to look after what is called social exclusion unit, because I think the ethnic minorities people are actually excluded in some ways or the other. So they really wanted to have some people just to show, just by the introduction of technology, how they can actually improve their life and employability and also livelihood. So I was very lucky to be working with Tony Blair at that time. I think when I was even younger than you, we were 5 sisters, 1 big brother. My father was a doctor, but he didn't like clinical side, so he went to University of Illinois to do PhD, came back, and he actually worked in a little lab which is called Serum Institute, which makes vaccine. But they had a little institute set up by British in Mukteshwar, in Himachal Pradesh, which is now Uttarakhand. I had actually visited my uncle's big steel plant, and I was really gobsmacked. I said, well, this is what I want to be. I was the best student in my school for biology, but in UP we had to do it, Uttar Pradesh, which is a state of India. You have to, if you really want to become a doctor, then you have to take biology. But if you want to take engineering discipline, then you have to take physics, chemistry, and maths. And I took that, and my teacher actually came to my class and said, "You are making a mistake. You are my best student." She was very upset. But I was really adamant that I wanted to be an engineer. But there was lots. So at that time, in that era, because I am very old now, but at that time, engineering was something. Nobody thought that a girl could do, especially in my family. My mother opposed, my auntie. They said, if she becomes an engineer, you will not be able to marry off your daughter. Nobody will marry her. Things like that, But my father, being a visionary, and my brother, these were the 2 people, because they supported me all through. And I was the first one in my family who actually broke the mold. And my father actually had this principle that he really wanted. He said that I want to educate my daughters more than the son, because not that they have to go and start working, but if something goes wrong, then he was of the belief that she can actually stand on her 2 feet and support the family. And I think I must salute my father so many years ago that he had that thought process, and I'm indebted to my brother and my father for that.
What are your current initiatives?
Current initiatives. First of all, I'm still doing my engineering work, so I still work for Innovate UK, look after the government projects. More recently, I've actually started working with Startup India in India. I still hold an Indian citizenship. I've never given up that, and I didn't take British citizenship. I am currently working with the IIT Delhi. They have one of the senior lecturer there. He is actually very passionately working for the pollution control and monitoring for Delhi and other places. So I'm actually started working with him. And there is, during the COVID time, through my other aspects like the humanitarian work, I did fundraising with my organization and Mandir and other organizations to help Indian students. And then the second wave of COVID, we sent 1100 pulse oximeters and 20 oxygen concentrators to Indian Medical Association. At that time, I found out that some of the medical devices, accuracy is not that good and they're very expensive. So I really want to develop some innovative products with better accuracy and lower cost, so that they can be used either in India, Africa, and other countries. So that is one part of my current initiative is in engineering. But other part is that I suppose a philanthropist and humanitarian. So I do really work only for things which are relevant to either Indian diaspora or multi-faith. So sort of East Renfrewshire Faith Forum, I'm the chairperson there. I am in different sort of organizations which, like Ethnic Minorities Sports Association, to do with sports, because I used to be 50 meters champion, badminton, tennis and so on. So now that I am older, but at least I can support that. So I'm secretary of that Association of Indian Organizations, which is an umbrella body of most of the Indian organizations here. It's a strategic body. So I work for that. I'm secretary there as well. I like to do secretarial work because that's the most challenging and a lot of work. So I do that. I'm Bengali, and way back when I first came, I used to be very homesick. So me and the other people started a Bengali Cultural Association and started Durga Pooja in Glasgow, so that we could actually show our heritage to our younger people and the host community. So that's ongoing, but I'm actually taken a back seat from that because there were so many other meaningful things to do that I really wanted to focus on those, but I'm still very involved in Durga Puja and so on. Tagore is a national poet and also Bengali poet, so I'm a chairperson in Tagore Centre, trying to move that one forward. And women, I really want to help women. So I'm one of the chair and also the board member of an organization called Himmat Grive, that is for battered women. So I work in that area. So these are very, I mean, although you might think there are so many different diverse ones, they are not, they are all interconnected, intertwined. Some are very Indian diaspora based and I'm passionate about them. And in recent times, I suppose the last 3 years, the COVID period, in Indian High Commission and Consulate General, they approached me when they were having difficulty for international students. So I've been actually helping them for around 3 years now.
Has the Indian heritage helped you or hinder you in your?
It's a difficult question, really. I think Britain is it's a diverse community, culturally diverse, especially Scotland is. I would say that superficially you think that it is really very welcoming. In some fields it's really glad, but I think if you're an Indian sort of background person, you will succeed in doing certain things, but there are certain things, it'll be a big challenge. So although they openly wouldn't actually admit that, but sort of like when you go to the senior level, then you start feeling it, that sometimes that the position which you could have otherwise got if you were in India or in America, I think there is a difficulty. Now I must say that we have got Rishi Sunak as Prime Minister, we might have Hamza Yusuf, so that barrier is gradually diminishing, but it's still there, especially in male-dominated area, it's still there. They openly wouldn't say that, but I mean, I have been into various selection committee and sort of recruitment within my organization. It's a global organization, and I've seen when they actually CVs come, and then if it says somebody who is with a foreign sounding name or something like that, they actually set it aside. But now I suppose when you see Glasgow Indians, for example, there are so many Indians who have actually come, and well done them, so it's been an achievement. So I think gradually the barrier is actually diminishing, and I would say that we have got a very positive sort of trend towards actually winning everything. But the time when I came, it wasn't like that, so it was really quite hard to convince. But once I convinced people, there was no looking back. So yeah, that's what I would say.
It's very rare to see someone so passionate about engineering wearing a sari. So is there any reason behind that?
I think it's my choice. Whatever you wear shouldn't actually dictate what people should think about. I know that it does happen, but I suppose, being a cold weather country, it's not easy. I actually worked in the Department of Trade and Industry, and I was working parallel processing area. My organization is more mechanical engineering, and I actually went in front of the senior civil servants with my things which I had in my hands. I said, well, we do electronics as well. Initially, they would be looking at me from sort of look like that. But once I actually had a rapport with them, then it didn't matter whether I was wearing a sari or whether I would wear a power suit. I actually gone and during my robotics days, parallel processing days, I'd been to various conferences all over the world and delivered my speech. My sari didn't hinder me. What I said was important, you know. But I came across one professor who came from South Africa, and he was following me everywhere. And then he came to me and said, well, it's very strange to see an Indian woman in this position. So you wear a sari and you deliver such a wonderful speech. Then I actually told him that, look, I mean, we had the first woman Prime Minister, Indira Gandhi. She wore sari everywhere. You see, so it doesn't matter what you wear, what you do is important. Yeah.
So, first of all, you mentioned you had lots of luck throughout your life. I don't think it was luck. I think it was just hard work that you did, because hearing all this, I think you worked really hard. So, following that, did you have any regrets throughout your life?
No, I never live with regrets. Whatever I've done, I think I'm totally happy, satisfied with whatever I've done, and I want to do more and never stop doing. Through my journey, I've actually been involved in what we call women in science and engineering. In mid-80s, there was somebody called Sir Monty Puniston who was sort of given this responsibility to work with various engineering councils to select some women and take an example of a woman's life. So they made a film on that, and I was one of them. After that, we had this initiative called Women in Science and Engineering. So I went to different schools. It didn't only encourage women, but girls, but also boys, because science and engineering is really underrated in UK. It is, I think, it's an image problem because here anybody is an engineer, whereas in India, Germany, and other countries, if you go, then science and engineering is well sort of highly rated. I think it's to do with how much money you earn, and what if you actually say that, well, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, they are engineers, then people will, young kids will be saying, yeah, okay, I want to be that. But it doesn't happen that way. So it's the fault is within engineers and scientists. We don't sell ourselves, you know. We normally actually go and get on with the work, but we don't publicize it. Whereas big bankers, the kids know that if I'm a banker, then I'll get lots of money, you know. So I think that image problem is there. So we're trying to really remove that using these initiatives. So I would say to young boys and girls that anything which interests you, try to follow that. Try to understand it, experience it. If you like it, then do it. Engineering is an amazing, everything is engineering basically, because my daughter is a doctor, and I used to go to wait for her outside, and one time I actually met a professor who was the surgeon, and he asked me, what do you do? I said, well, I'm just an engineer. He said, don't say you're just an engineer, because do you know anything what is happening in the medical faculty? It's all because of engineers, because all the instrumentation, all the big apparatus, anything which is by engineers, you know. So don't underrate yourself. So, and scientists are the same, IT people are the same. So I would actually say that whatever you think, when you're very young, sometimes you don't know, you can't decide, you only think that whatever parents said, you should follow that, or your friends are doing it. But try and see for yourself, and maybe do a lot of research and soul searching before you actually get on to whatever you try to do. But if you do something which you enjoy, I think you will have a higher success rate for that. And I'm lucky that I actually was able to do that, and I'm still doing it, and I think I will be still carrying on doing engineering work and also my humanitarian work until God actually decide that I can't do it anymore. So thank you. Glasgow Indians. I really came across Glasgow Indians when I'm executive committee member of Mandir. I come to the Mandir like every Sunday and Monday. Abhijit and I actually started talking to right from the early days, very early days, and then now I suppose they have done so much. I'm really proud of their achievements. But in more recent times, when we were actually doing international student support during COVID period, so I started with. The approach came from the from High Commission, because there was one girl who had actually been in trouble, which had serious problem. So I tried to help them, and then the idea came that I think we should do more. So I approached Mandir, but they were not interested. They were redistributing food and I cooked meal. But then luckily I got another organization involved called Malayali Association. So started doing fundraising. Didn't go to uncles and aunties and didis because everybody was doing that. So I actually went to churches, interfaith organizations, and got very sizable sum. There was one funding came from Palo Alto church. They seen my flyer and they phoned me and said, "Can we transfer $1,000?" That kind of thing was flowing in. So at that time we decided, we did a bit of research as to what the students would like, and they came up with saying that they needed grocery, not cooked meal, grocery, accommodation, tuition fee, and repatriation through Vande Bharat mission. So all the fund which was collected, we had a partnership with Malayali Association, like AIO had, and I was actually leading it. I asked the Mandir, but then once Mandir saw that it is really a good work, so they joined very nicely. But at that time, for the food distribution, there was a problem because AIO people, most of them are quite elderly, so they couldn't go out in COVID period. So I asked Glasgow Indian, and it was wonderful partnership with them. So food distribution was done through them. These boys, they were enthusiastic and they came. We actually made consignments, like 1 month's consignment would be like breakfast, lunch and dinner type of thing, and I calculated how much an adult would take. So we distributed something like 25,500 meals and provisions, and it was because of Glasgow Indians that was possible. And we still collaboratively try to work as much as possible, and I'm very fond of them. Yeah.
Thank you for giving us your
Thank you
important
so
time.
much.
Thank you for giving us
Thank
the
you,
time.
sweet children. You are so wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.